Competition is the single biggest factor in success, more than any marketing strategy, okay? Because there's only so many deals to be had in any given market. And when times get tougher, like right now, there's fewer deals to be had. So how many people are trying to get those same deals? That's the hard part. And how good are you at getting yourself to stand out amongst the other 10 people that are trying to get the same deal, 10 or 20 or 100? Direct mail is complicated. Marketing is complicated. To be successful, there's a whole lot of variables you got to consider that most people never think about.
Welcome to the Kash Dash Show with Jeff Charlton.
All right.
Hey, Jeff, before we get into your backstory and kind of what you do in business and life, I do have to ask you. So you've seen millions of postcards over the years, right?
Right.
What is the most ridiculous mail piece that you can recall, or maybe one of them that someone has actually sent out?
Well, ridiculous probably isn't a good word, but there's one. I make a direct mail presentation quite often at various different events, and I have one on my thing that's called the worst postcard I've ever seen. And it's a little small postcard. It's about this size right here. That's a small postcard, but it's not color, and it's black and white, and the whole thing was super blurry and microscopic type where you couldn't read anything. Mm-hmm. So whoever spent the money to do that completely wasted their money, because I promise you they got a 0% response, other than maybe couldn't even call to take you off the list because you couldn't read the phone number to call back.
We interviewed somebody and they put stamps all up. Who was that?
That was Fernando Angelucci.
Fernando, yeah. Tell him that story.
He had, well, real quick. So we had a guest on that got started in wholesaling and flipping before he got into storage, and they ended up calling. He had a business partner, and they wanted to do a big direct mail campaign. So I think they did 40,000 mailers, but before they did that, they called a stamp broker, and somehow or another they figured out that they could get a good discount if they bought in bulk. So they call this broker, and the guy's like, what's the most amount of stamps that you're comfortable putting on a letter? Because he had 1 cent stamps, 2 cents, all those leftovers. And I don't remember what the number was, but it might have been
like 20 something.
No, it was like 11 or something. They just pulled it out of the air because they didn't know. So they buy it, and then they drop all 40,000 at once. So they literally turned into a call center. And eventually someone called, and when one of the guys answered, he said, hey, he went into his pitch. I'm looking to buy real estate in your area, blah, blah, blah. You got my direct mail piece. Are you interested in selling? He's like, yeah. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the stamps that you sent. And the guy's like, what do you mean? And he said, this one stamp that there's 7 of them on this envelope is worth, I don't remember what he said, but they're like $20 a piece.
Or more, yeah.
So really? They got these evidently fairly rare stamps and included it in a gigantic mail campaign that resulted in just getting assaulted with calls all day. Yeah, hilarious story. He tells it much better than I do, but
he also talked like it was all the stamps that people. It was like political stamps, or it was maybe it was like a gay flag stamp or something that like a lot of people thought was controversial, and then they were all over. So he said all types of phone calls came through because of this.
Did I get good phone calls, or was it all bad?
It was, I think, a pretty mixed bag. But most people are like, who the hell are these guys? And it was just curiosity, I think. But they had a pretty good open rate, I think, on that. I don't know what it was, but...
talking about calls, I know this is not necessarily part of our topic, but it just reminded me, when you're doing direct mail, one of the things you got to make sure you do is make sure you get your call center set up properly. I just had a call yesterday with a brand new customer. I'm not going to use his name because he'd be embarrassed, but it's a mortgage broker who asked me to design a brand new mail campaign to redo mortgages, refinancing. Did the campaign, we did 10,000 pieces of mail, got tons of calls, and they didn't close one single deal. And he said because their call center wasn't prepared to take the calls, and they didn't know what to say, and they just handled them poorly, and they blew every lead. And he was so pissed. And I said, well, how did you let that happen? He said, well, it wasn't my department. It was some other guy in charge of that department. He didn't do his job.
Oh,
and so they literally pissed away, thousands of dollars in mail. There was a good response because they weren't prepared for the phone calls. So that's a lesson. And I tell our customers that all the time. Make sure your phone number works. Make sure people that are answering the phone know what to say. Make sure all the technology works, whatever you're doing, before you put anything out.
I think that's the conversation I'm actually having with your team at 3:00 today. Is all about the mail going out and how to handle it.
Right.
Jeff, do you think that people fail in direct mail due more to a bad strategy and execution or giving up too early?
It's both. Because, I mean, there's no guarantee that anything's going to work. And mail works if you do it right, but it also doesn't work if you don't do it right. So what we see all the time, people, first of all, they think it's easy. They think it's no big deal, just get a list and throw some postcard out. There's way more to it than that. And to be good at it, there's way more to it than that. So beginners especially, if they think they can figure it out on their own, that's a huge mistake because you have to test. And mail's expensive to test. But so it's a combination of both. I don't know. There's no one answer. But giving up too soon for sure. We see giving up too soon, or we see people they'll do something and they'll have success, and then they stop for a while because they'll say, whatever, I need to handle my leads, whatever it might be, and then they lose their momentum. There's people that are most successful in direct mail have a set budget, either weekly or monthly, and they just keep doing it. And it's just you turn it on, you keep it going, and you tweak periodically. We usually like to see a campaign go for a quarter, and then we look at some results and tweak it a little bit. But we don't usually stop; we just tweak.
Well, you probably got people too, like, oh, I got a good deal on this initial list. Probably got a crappy list or an old list, and then they also sent the campaign out to a whole bunch of numbers or addresses that aren't relevant anymore. Is that
going cheap? And that's a huge point. Probably the biggest mistake people make is they try to go cheap with who they're going to use to do the mail, and that also includes the list broker or the list company. A good list is important, a good mail piece is important, but also somebody that knows how to strategically put list and mail together is even more important. And you need somebody that really knows what they're doing to help you do that, especially in real estate. And most of the people that are listening to this podcast are probably in real estate investors. To go to your local mail house company to get a cheaper price, which you will. If you go to any city in America and find the local mail house, they're going to be cheaper than us, okay? Cheaper than probably anybody that specializes in real estate. Because mail houses number one, they don't know how to price for profit. That's why most of them have gone out of business in the last 20 years. But they also don't know anything about your industry. They'll get the mail out. They can print and mail. They'll do just fine. But they don't know anything about what you're doing. And they're not going to give you any advice because they don't know what they're talking about. So being good at a specific niche and really knowing what works in that niche is a huge thing. What we do that's different than our competition is number one, we're the biggest company in the nation. We mail over 3 million pieces of mail every month. Most months it's closer to 4 million. And it's all for real estate investing. Well, I won't say all, but 98% of it's real estate investing. And we track the results on about 50% of that because we either have tracking phone numbers or we take the phone calls or both. And when we do that, we have the actual incoming data of response data. And we use that response data to help advise other customers on what works and what doesn't work. And it's both list data and what mail piece works. We track all that stuff. We know which mail pieces were used, which lists we use, what filters we use to pull those lists if we pull them. There's a lot of moving parts, and we track all that stuff, and we use that to advise customers on what works and what doesn't. So we're effectively using other people's money to advise our customers on the best practices. That doesn't guarantee success, but it does give them a better chance of getting off on the right foot when they're new to it, especially. Over time, you develop your own data, and that's relevant because like answering phone calls is a big deal. Okay. If you don't handle your incoming leads right, you are not going to be as effective as you could be. And a lot of people drop that ball. It's not just answering the phone. Here's a stat. Do you know that over 55% of the phone calls that come in from direct mail do not get answered?
That's a lot of money out the window.
That is pathetic.
Yeah. I mean, that just blows my mind. Why would you spend money and not answer the phone? Now, they intend to. It's not like people are intentionally not answering, but a lot of our customers and a lot of real estate investors are one-man operations or maybe a very small team, and they're not sitting around all day waiting for the phone to ring. They're on the phone. They're working. They're doing stuff. And even if they are sitting around and answer the phone, when they answer it, they talk to somebody. So if a call comes in when you're busy, you're not going to answer it. And you may have a voicemail, you may not. A lot of them don't even have good voicemail systems, though. And then even when the message comes in, if you don't very quickly call back, that lead's pretty much gone. Because most people calling in are hot, and if you don't answer, they're going to the next one. So that's a big deal.
When you were in the corporate world, you started out originally as a civil engineer, I believe, in education. Is that right?
Not education. Yeah, that is my education.
That was your educational
I
background.
have a civil engineering degree from the University of Missouri, Columbia. They call it Mizzou.
Yeah. How long was it before you figured out that wasn't the career path you wanted to?
Well, I figured out I did want to be an engineer halfway through college, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just kept doing it because I could do it. I was good at it, but I didn't really like it. I like building things. That I still do, but I don't know. I just wasn't. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and I could see that wasn't going to be an entrepreneurial path. So anyway, I went ahead and got the degree. I ended up going to work for Procter & Gamble not as a civil engineer, as an industrial engineer in their diaper and maxi pad plant in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And I did that for my first 3 years out of college, but I actually realized about 6 months into that gig that I couldn't stand working for corporate America either. And I confirmed I didn't like industrial engineering either. And I knew I had to get back into being my own business. And I had started the reason I knew about that is I had a painting company from the time I was 14 years old all the way through graduating in college. And it was only during the summers, but I had 12 guys working for me when I was a senior in high school, including my 4 football coaches. And I continued that through college. And so I had a taste of being an entrepreneur. And when I got out of college, I didn't want to be a painter, but the taste of entrepreneurship, I knew that was for me. So,
What was the first business you started?
well, I went to work. At the time I was married when I graduated, and my father-in-law had a small printing company. And I didn't know anything about printing, but I knew he didn't have any kids and he was getting older, and he didn't have any kids to bring into the business. My wife at the time wasn't interested in that. So I thought, printing, what the heck? I don't know. I want to learn something other than painting. So I made him an offer and said, I'd like to come and work for you, learn the business. Then when you retire, I'd like to buy your company from you. And that plan was like a 5-year plan. And he liked that idea. So I went to work for him, did learn the business. I just worked as a salesman, and I was very successful very quick. And I didn't know anything about selling. I've always been kind of a shy guy, technical guy. But I thought if I'm going to get into selling, I didn't realize that I had sales in me. But to have my painting business, how did I get jobs? I went around and knocked on people's doors. I didn't have any kind of a pitch. My pitch was, hey, we're painting that house over there. You want us to paint your house? That was my pitch. And it worked. So, because we always had more jobs than we knew what to do with. That's why I had so many people working for me. But anyway, as I look back at my life, when I finally decided to get out of engineering and go into, I realized to be an entrepreneur, you got to be you got to be able to, especially when you're by yourself, you got to be able to sell. So I thought, well, if I'm going to accept the fact that I'm going to be in sales, I'm going to be good at selling. So I took a couple classes, took the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People class, which was also a sales thing. And I just dug into it. I learned everything there was to know about printing, and I was very aggressive, and I did very well very quickly. But I did that for about 2 years, and then I realized the guy, my father-in-law, him and I were sort of butting heads, and I realized I did not want to take over his company. I didn't want that plan to go that way. So about 2.5 years into it, I quit cold turkey, and I was doing really well, making a lot of money. And I gave it all up and went to work in my basement by myself. I'd proven that I could do it, and I was what they call a print broker, which meant I bought and resold everything. I didn't have a plant. And I went to my basement, started making phone calls. And I had nothing to offer other than myself. So rather than hide from that, I've always been very honest in sales. And a lot of the stuff I learned in my sales classes, I sort of threw out the window because I thought it was hard closing, bullshit sales tactics that I didn't like. So I decided I'm going to do it the way I would like to be sold, which is just be honest. And so I would tell people, look, I'm a guy working out of my basement, but I know a lot about printing. My printing's as good as anybody else. It's not any better, it's not any worse. I'll provide good materials, but what I have that nobody else has is me. I'm really good at this, and if you give me a chance, I will prove to you that I'll do a better job than anybody else you'll ever talk to. I just need one order to give me a chance. That was my pitch. And
you built on a reputation. Hey, if you call me, I'm going to call you back. If I say I'm going to do what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it.
I did have 2 things I live by, and to this day I live by it. I do what I say I'm going to do 100% of the time, and I return my phone calls in 24 hours or less. And that's what I did. Back then we had cell phones, but it wasn't like they were today. It was actually a car phone mounted to the car. And so I had a pager back then, and I had an answering service. When I couldn't answer the phone myself, it forwarded to the answering service, and they would actually talk to somebody, and they could type into my pager the message, And I would get that message, and unless I was in a meeting or something, I would immediately pick up the phone and call somebody back. And because I was by myself, I had to prove to them that I was going to serve them better than anybody else. And I did. And it was just sheer will, but it worked. And to this day, that on our wall, all of our building, we have kind of our key company morals and ethics, and those two the two top ones. Do what you say you're going to do 100% of the time. Nobody does that, by the way, in our world. Nobody does it. Okay, I won't say nobody. There probably are 1 out of 1,000. But if you do that, that alone stands out from the crowd, because hardly anybody ever does that.
I mean, that's all I care about when I'm working with somebody is do what you're going to say and do, and stick to your word.
That's it. My word is my bond. I don't need a written contract. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and you know this better than anybody being involved in marketing for as long as you have. It's one bad, conversation about an experience somebody had leads to 10, that propagating to 10 different people. So there's nothing worse than damaging a reputation by not following through on what you said you were going to do.
Well, especially in the Google review world these days. I mean, it's worse than ever when it comes to that, because if you do bad, it's going to get posted on Google, and you do not want that.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned, or it seems now that you've got 27 businesses that you have bought or built over your career. Is that right?
I bought 27 bought. Okay, the built, that's another number. I'm not sure what that number is. Frankly, I never really added it up, because I built several that didn't work out so well. I'm not always successful, but my main company has always been my printing company, printing and direct mail. I mean, when I say printing, we do general commercial printing. Means anything you want to put your name on, whether it be paper and ink, mostly paper and ink. But we also do ad specialties and embroidery, logos, things like this. I've got an embroidery shop. So pretty much any signage. So that's our basic printing company. I call that general commercial printing. But a subset of that is direct mail. And so right now we're at about 31 million in sales annually. And of that, about 27 million is direct mail. The rest of it is general commercial printing.
Okay, but 27 bought, are these like companies you're buying out and you're absorbing into your business, or are these?
Yeah, so what I did is I started by myself, and then hired my first hire was an assistant, and then we grew kind of slow. But I went from zero to 2 million in sales really quick in like 2 years, and then I went from 2 million to 4 million over about the next 15 years or something like that. And I kept trying. I knew I needed to hire more salespeople, and I kept trying. The only person I ever hired that was successful is my brother, who still works for me today. He was my first hire, and he's still with me 20-something years later. But I just kept failing at hiring sales. I probably hired 20 or 30 salespeople that every one of them failed. And I realized that I was not a good sales manager. I'm a good entrepreneur, good business leader, good at a lot of things, good salesman, but I'm not a good sales manager. And I didn't have time for it anyway. It takes time to be a good manager, and I just didn't have time because I was too busy running the business and doing everything else. So after trying all that, it wasn't working. So I decided, well, maybe if I can't hire somebody, I'll just buy somebody. Well, so I started buying businesses. And it wasn't like I'm some big corporate raider. I was buying. The printing industry has been a shrinking industry my entire career. Companies have been going out of business really my entire career too, because 40 years ago, there was a print shop on every corner, and those little small print shops, they knew how to set up a shop and wait for people to come in. Well, that dog doesn't hunt. It hadn't hunted for about 30 years. So you got to go out and get the business, and they didn't know how to do that. So they would hang on as long as they could, and then they'd fail. So I started looking for companies that were either ready to retire or go out of business. And I would, about once a year, sometimes twice a year, I would buy a small print shop that was failing. And I usually was able to do it for almost no money. Some of them were literally no money. Most of them were minimal down payment, and then I'd pay them a percentage of sales over the next 3 years. That was my standard deal. Put down as little as I can, which was usually not more than $10,000, and then pay them usually 10% of sales over the next 3 years of any sales we got from the customers that I took over from them. And if we grew the sales, those customers, they'd get a piece of that too.
It would seem that I mean, if you've done this that many times, it's almost like creative financing in real estate. So you're taking over. Yeah. Do you ever do it like subject to existing debt? Like if the owner had, say, I don't know, an underlying loan on it, or is this something where they're typically paid off and there's no debt?
No, it's asset purchases only. I never took any debt. And you have to find people. And there's no deal if both people don't win. So I'm big on win-win deals always. So you have to find, and this is true in everything, okay, not just buying companies. It's true in a direct mail order too. If we can't provide a service where somebody wins, they're not going to come back. So they got to win, and we got to win. We got to be able to make money. So that's what it is. Well, when you're buying companies, it's the same thing. I bought 27 deals. I probably looked at another 50 deals I couldn't make over those years because either somebody wants too much money, or they're unrealistic, or you just couldn't work, or I didn't want it because when I looked at it, there wasn't enough meat on that bone that I didn't want it. But basically, I would look when somebody is at a point where they're hemorrhaging money, they're losing money, whatever, or they want to retire. There's not a lot of demand for printing companies either. So I just had to, I'd find out, what do you need? Do you have debt? Do you have a lease on your property? Because we would always I wanted the customers. I didn't need the equipment. I didn't need their office space. I just wanted the customers. So we'd buy the customers, and if they had employees, we would bring the employees with the deal too. I didn't want to fire the employees. We wanted the employees. Because when you want the customers, you want the relationships, and the employees have the relationships. So if I can bring that with me, that furthers my chance of keeping those customers. I just look for what they need. If you need, what do they need? And is there a way I could creatively come up with a solution for that? I did do it. My first couple of deals, I didn't do that. I got a loan. I paid one lump sum of money. Huge mistake. Both those deals, they worked out okay eventually, but I paid way too much money, and I shouldn't have paid up front because I just didn't know what I was doing. But I only had to learn that lesson a couple times the hard way, and I never did that again.
Is like a small commercial print shop, let's say you come in, you're able to get really favorable terms, maybe small down payment of $5 or $10,000, something like that, and you agree to. I was right when you said the percentage of sales. It made me think of Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank, how he was always offering that type of arrangement. Do you find that you're able to cash flow that like immediately? I would assume you are. If
there's another. So I'll give you another metric that I go by. If I can't break even on the deal in 1 year, I won't do it based on my projections. And I also learned no matter how good we are at buying companies and maintaining customers, the best we ever did is we only lost 25% of the customers. In other words, we maintain 75% of the business. That's the best we ever did.
Yep.
Most of them are worse than that. And the reason is, I didn't know this in the beginning either, but I learned from experience. When his business is going down and he's hurting, he's already lost a bunch of business he doesn't even know about. So when you evaluate a company, you get their financials. Well, that's past history. That's old news. Even if it's relatively current, it's still old news. You don't know who you've lost that aren't going to repeat this year when you look at last year's numbers. So I found a lot of that 25% was just not because we screwed up. They just already lost it. They didn't even know it. And getting it back once it's lost is way harder, especially when I don't have that relationship. So I would take whatever they gave me and I'd knock it down by at least 25%. And then I do my own projection based on what I think it means to me. Because almost every one of these companies was losing money. When you buy a company, you take a multiple of the either the EBITDA or the net, what they call net owner benefit. But if there is no net owner benefit, then any multiple of zero is still zero. Well, if you tell somebody, I'm not giving you any money for your business because it's not worth anything, you don't make too many deals. So, because there is some value, but it's a different kind of evaluation. So I have to look at my own pro forma based on what I think I can get out of this company based on the situation and the unique situation. And I would do that in every one. And there is always some hidden money, like people are writing off their car and their insurance or whatever. So I could find some hidden money. So long story short, I would look at the numbers and say, if I think I can make this work, if I take all of the gross profit I earn off this deal and apply it to whatever I pay, can I make all my money back in a year? And if I can do that, then I would try to make it happen. If I couldn't, I'd walk away.
Quick side story. I think it was 2005, I took a job on the recruiting team for IBM's printing systems division. I don't know if that time frame wise, if that matched up when you were in the industry. Is that familiar? They kind of sell the large scale.
What year would that be?
That was, 2005 through 2007. And then that division got acquired by Ricoh. And I worked for Ricoh Americas for about 8 years after that.
Yeah, I've been doing this I've had this company since 1992, and I started in 88.
I remember one of my jobs was I needed to recruit the kind of higher level sales folks that would call on, they would try to sell the machines and the maintenance and equipment and all those things. They would basically have industry verticals where they were concentrated, and they had teams of like pre-sales or post-sales consultants that would go out and try to sell continuous forms and kind of the larger format printing equipment, and they made huge margins on that. But I remember there was a lot of talk around that time about print being a declining industry. And you've been hearing this, you said, your whole career.
Yeah.
Do you feel there is any existential threat to the direct mail business with the advances in AI, with, the U.S. Postal Service has, they're just terrible about running a business, it seems. But do you think there's any world that exists where the post office will require everyone to have an email address that is specific to replacing paper mail?
Who knows what's going to happen 50 years from now, but in the foreseeable future, the post office is the biggest risk. So that is, I agree with that. They are the biggest risk to the direct mail industry. But the reason why, if you look in your mailbox, most people get a ton of junk mail. I probably get more than the normal person because I purposely get on lists and things because I want to see what other people are doing. So I get a stack of mail that thick every day, and most of it's marketing stuff. But it works, okay? That doesn't just work in real estate. It works in all industries. Catalog companies these days, every company is online. But yet I get thick catalogs, tons of them all the time. Well, why would you if you have an online website that works, why would you send out a catalog? Well, because the online people, they know the ROI is good. Sending that catalog drives more people to their website to order, and it still creates a positive ROI from them. That's why they do it. So it's still effective. And the reason it's effective, in fact, I've been saying for years, if you're not using direct mail as part of your comprehensive marketing strategy, you're leaving money on the table. Now, what does that mean? It's specifically in real estate, but this really applies to everything. No matter how good you are digitally, okay, and digital works, I'm not saying it doesn't, okay? You can absolutely get business from Facebook and Instagram and Google pay-per-click. All kinds of digital advertising works, okay? But not everybody responds to digital advertising, okay? Especially in the real estate space, most of the deals you're going to make are to people that have been in their house a long time, tend to be older people, tend to be seniors. And, of course, we know about probate and inheritance, but even people that are just getting old, going into a nursing home or whatever, they move into a retirement community. And those are the houses that haven't been updated. They look like crap. They might be hoarders or whatever. We got all kinds of stories about that in real estate. But that's a high percentage of your target market are older people. Older people tend to not be digital. There's not too many old people who are going to go search Google for somebody to buy their house, right? But they all go look at their mail and they read it. And it's not just old people. The post office did a study about 5 years ago. And as of then, they found that 92% of Americans still walk to their mailbox every day and read their mail. And millennials specifically back then liked mail more than digital. And that's surprising. And I think, and this is a theory, but I think it's because, every young person's got their phone glued to their hand everywhere they go. I mean, not just young people. A lot of people have that, but especially young people. But mail is different. It's more personal. Get a piece of paper with your name on it in your mailbox. There's a little bit of a charge out of that, and I think everybody likes that. Plus, you have time. We know this. You got your phone. You're flipping through your phone with whether it's Facebook or whatever, and you're flipping as fast as you can flip. Well, whatever ads go up, they come and go so fast. If you don't catch that person right now, they're gone. Okay. Well, with mail, that's not the case. You got more time in the mailbox. From the time they walk from the mailbox to the trash, you got a few seconds. And even if they stand over the trash can flipping through it, if you can make part of the strategy in direct mail is to get past the trash can. So your first strategy is get them to at least save your piece for the save pile, which is later going to be the read pile. And you got a few more seconds than you do with any kind of digital marketing. And then people also will save it. If they think they might want it in the future, they will save that piece of mail for some future date. And people that do direct mail regularly all will tell you some of their best deals happen in calls they get 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years later after they mailed somebody something. They save the mail piece and they call them 3 years later. Those are some of the best, easiest to close, and most profitable deals. Because somebody's going to save that mail for 3 years. You better believe they're serious when they call you. And they're probably not calling anybody else.
One of the best deals I ever bought was from a direct mail piece I sent, and the owner of the property died, and their grown adult kids were going through their stuff and found my letter in the back of a drawer. Called me. It ended up being a 14-unit deal, and I killed it on that. And that was from a 3-year-old letter that I was.
Yeah, we call that the tail, but it's a compounding interest effect of direct mail. But no other marketing has that. And when you add that, when you look at ROIs, usually people just look at the instantaneous response that they get right away, and they'll say, okay, I made money or didn't. They don't count all the tail that keeps coming, but it does. And it adds up. It's an annuity that keeps paying off long after. And if you mail month after month and you do that for several years, that annuity really builds up.
I agree with you. You said it much better than me. I like to think of direct mail as kind of a time bomb, or like you're sending out a whole bunch of stuff. And it's so, and I'm curious your opinion on this, but it's so difficult to measure in short time frames what the effectiveness of a direct mail campaign is, because to your point, you may think I mailed for 1 year and I only got a couple deals out of it and my ROI was break even. And then all of a sudden, so they're like, well, that 12-month period, my ROI was 0. And then the very next month, they get a call from something they mailed 13 months ago, and they make $100,000 on a deal.
Well, I just had a customer with that exact story. Literally last week, there was somebody that were trying out mail. They'd never used it before, but they thought they knew what they were doing. So they got into it. They wouldn't listen to us. About 3 months, they spent a fair amount of money. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was over $10,000 a month, and they didn't get hardly anything out of it. And they called us all upset, and we said, look, give us 3 more months and let us do what we know best. And sure enough, that's what we did. And it didn't start off like hotcakes, but they ended up getting, I forget the numbers, but it was like a $150,000 profit collectively on the 6-month campaign, over and above what they spent on the mail. And they admitted, you know what? You're right. What do you want us to do? And that's it.
Yeah, now here's a question I'm sure you get all the time. You'll get a real estate investor that's trying to get started, and they've decided they want to do some marketing. They don't have much to spend. I know this is not a fair question because you operate around the U.S. and maybe is it primarily U.S. that your company?
It's only United States. Yeah.
So this isn't a fair question, but you're in St. Louis, we're in Omaha, not that far away from each other in the Midwest.
Right.
There's California is a completely different animal. New York is a completely different animal. So in general, is there in the Midwest an effective baller on a budget type approach to direct mail if you want to take a stab at it?
Well, that's what we do. All right, so we always go backwards. We back into what you need to spend to be successful. And the first question I ask is, how many leads does it cost you to close a deal? And if you don't know that, if you're brand new and you don't know it, then we use like 40 leads per deal if somebody doesn't know. Most people can do better than that once they get experience, but that's kind of the worst case scenario with mail. Now, other mediums are more. I mean, digital marketing, some of it's as much as 100 leads per deal, but I'm only talking about mail. So if it's 40 per deal, that means it takes you 4,000 pieces. Well, it depends on the response rate. Then the next thing is, what is the response rate in that area? So if you use 1%, just for even numbers, it would take you 4,000 pieces of mail to get 40 leads to close one deal based on those metrics. So if you're better than that, if you're 1 in 20 or whatever, then it's better. And if response rate is worse, that affects it too. So the Midwest, it's different. So that the point is, you're absolutely right. Different markets perform radically different. In Los Angeles, people got to spend generally $10,000 or more to get a deal, but they make tons of money when they get a deal. Usually the profits in LA are at least 50 grand per deal or more, even for wholesaling. So they can afford to spend 10. I always say, whatever the number is, but by the way, let me back up. Another key question is, how much do you make per deal? Okay, because that's part of the analysis. So if you're not making in general at least 10,000 per deal, you're probably going to have a hard time making money in mail. Really hard time making money in any kind of paid advertising, because most other digital paid advertising, it usually costs $3 to $5 grand minimum per deal in any kind of advertising to get a deal, paid advertising. Mail, we've seen it as low as $1,500, but I wouldn't say that's a norm. Mostly it's in the area of $3,000 to $5,000 of mail spend to get a deal. So most people want to at least double their money. So if you spend 5, you want to bring in at least 10 to make it worth your while.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And wholesaling we've seen the last year, the whole market has been through a downturn, especially through wholesaling. Wholesaling's gotten a lot tougher in the last year, and we've seen tons of wholesalers drop out. Not drop out of the market, but just drop out of wholesaling.
Well, it's illegal in most places now.
Yeah, they're creating a lot of legislation, which I'm sure you know about. But and it's also, real estate's gotten a lot tougher the last few years when financing.
We're still doing it though. We've definitely, nobody really knows the numbers, but I can tell you from our own. we have any given time about 2,000 customers that are active. When I say active, it's somebody that's bought from us in the last 12 months. And that number was down radically last year, like by almost half.
Wow.
But we still sold the same amount. So what we saw is most of the small guys, most of the loss came from small guys. Beginners that don't know what they're doing, they didn't give it the college try. We also do business with a lot of coaches. We've got 200 affiliates, more than 200 affiliates. All of our affiliates are coaches, real estate coaches. I've seen those guys drop like flies too. I mean, completely get out of coaching. And every one of them, even the successful ones, their numbers are way down too in terms of coaching students. I mean, way down, like more than 50% for most of them. We just had an event last week. We go to a lot of events too. This event's been 800 to 1,000 people every year for the last several years. They had 200 people for the exact same event.
Wow.
So we had another event. It's a major name in the industry that usually drew about 120 people, had 20 people at their last event, which was just last week also. So it's been tough, but the people that know what they're doing, and especially the fix and flippers, because there's way more margin in fix and flip, they're still doing well. It's just a little tougher, but they're still doing well.
I listened to a podcast where you mentioned, there's a saying that the riches are in the niches. And you were describing, I don't think it was yourself, you were referencing someone you knew that got into a business and then tried to say yes to everything. Or maybe this was just a random example you pulled out. But you're trying to do all things for all people. I'm sure being involved in a marketing channel like direct mail, you have a data business as well, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do you know when to say no when people come to you and they say, can you be my call center? Can you do my digital marketing? Can you also do this? Can you also do this? When do you cut it off and say, this doesn't make sense? We want to be more of a specialist than a generalist.
Well, you're absolutely right about the riches and the niches. In fact, my personal story, just to complete that, I went from zero when I started 34 years ago to 4 million in sales over about 25 years. About 7 years, whatever the math is, 34 minus 7. 7 years ago, I guess that's more than 25. I'm trying to blank. 28. So for the first 28 years, I went from 0 to 4 million in sales. 7 years ago, I got serious about the real estate niche. And I got into it because I'm a real estate investor. I have been since I was 18 years old. So it's always been kind of a side deal for me, but I was in it. Bottom line is, I kind of dabbled in it from 2008 up until 7 years ago from a printing standpoint, but I never really did much. Just dabbled. 7 years ago, I decided I need to really focus on a niche because we were all things to all people, and that is tough. Okay, sounds good on paper, like, well, I can sell you all kinds of stuff. The problem is, how do you market that? I never had a good 30-second elevator pitch because it's too wide. So I knew we needed to get into a niche. So I thought, what better one than real estate? They use a lot of mail. We know it works. So we started focusing on that, and I hired a sales, and to fix my problem. Even buying companies worked okay, but I never hit any home runs. It just kind of kept me in the game. So I knew I still needed to get a sales force. So I hired a sales manager who specialized in sales management with no sales force. And I hired him. I took a chance, paid him a lot of money, said, you build my sales force, but I want you to do it in this real estate niche, not general commercial printing. And I'd done enough that I knew the pitch. I knew everything. So I just handed everything to him and said, I need to focus on this. So long story short, that was 7 years ago. In the last 7 years, we went from 4 million, 31 million. And I had about 20 employees then. I have 75 here in St. Louis, and I got another 20 overseas. All that came from focusing on a niche and getting really good at it. And we're now the biggest in the nation by a lot in this niche. And we know it backwards and forwards, so we're really good at it. And so now I can say things like, I can really do better than you can do on your own. I couldn't do that when I'm a generalist because it's too wide, So back to your point about the second question, when did you say no? So one of the biggest axioms you'll hear if you go to any kind of a coach that teaches you how to build your business or grow your business, they'll say sell more to your existing customers. That's one of the first things you do. Well, you can go wide with that, and we try to. I mean, if I've got a customer, I'll say, sure, we can do your business cards and your letterhead and all that. But that never has really been all that effective. So what we have done is we just recently added PPL to our portfolio of services. And one of the companies I bought had a call team. So I got into the call team business That was 5 years ago. I bought that company, and they had a call team, and I wanted to get into that, so that was a strategic purchase. That was one of the few companies I bought that was profitable, and it wasn't me cleaning up some company that was going out of business. They were very successful, but the owner had pain because he wanted to get out of the business. So I still did a creative financing solution, and I solved his pain and got a really good company, and we both won. And it got me into a whole nother niche that was they already had it rolling. I didn't have to build it. So when do I say no, though? I don't try to go too wide. So it's PPL. PPL is done. We have a hybrid version of PPL. We're using mail to generate leads, but we're also using digital. And we've also formed some partnerships who are using digital in different industries, like the mortgage industry. We have a partner with a mortgage company pulling in some mortgage leads. People that have a mortgage are also a lot of times thinking about selling a house, so it still applies. So it's literally only 4 months old, but we're doing really well with that, and it fits in. So the long answer to the question is, I'll expand into a niche that's related to my main expertise, which is real estate marketing. But I'm okay going a little wider with real estate marketing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Pay per lead is basically so PPL, for those that don't know, is pay per lead. More or less, they are paying for that lead to be in their inbox without having to go through the step of
Correct.
Creating the mail piece, sending it out, answering the calls.
Correct. It's more instantaneous and it's less risk. Someone can buy one lead if they want. Mm-hmm. So if the guy that's afraid of direct mail or they don't have a big budget, it's a good way to start because we've got leads at all different prices too, as low as $35, as high as $300, depending on the quality of the lead. And but the $35 leads work. People get deals from it. It just takes more phone calls to get a deal, but you can still get deals. So it totally fits into our niche. And I learned from my study, direct mail still scares a lot of people. And about 40 to 60% of real estate investors use direct mail. That means 40 to 60% don't use direct mail. So doing PPL opens us up to that other 40 to 60%. So now I'm able to serve the entire market and it still fits into what we do. Because basically we're generating leads for real estate is what we're doing. We use mail and we use other methods to generate leads.
In doing some research for this, Ted and I looked at watched a podcast that you were on where you talked about kind of the innovation side of what you do. And you have been kind of a trailblazer with regard to, direct mail has been around forever, as we all know. But you came up with some unique designs and methods to attract more attention, get more opens and eyeballs and things like that. First, could you maybe describe what some of those have been that have been successful?
Well, the first one was back, most people have probably seen what I call a street view mailer, a mailer where they take a picture of your house, comes from Google, and that picture actually shows up on the mail piece. Well,
I get those all the time.
Got one yesterday.
All the time.
About 7 years ago, that did not exist. I invented that. Okay. Now, I didn't invent the technology to pull the picture. That's Google. They own that. But I was the first guy ever in the United States in any industry to use that on a mail piece. We tried to patent it. I actually had the trademark, streetviewmailers.com. I owned the trademark. But when you get a trademark, there's a 6-month period where someone can dispute the trademark, and Google found out about it and disputed it.
Oh, no kidding. So I
ended up making a deal with Google to sell them that trademark back. They gave me money for it. I didn't fight with them, but they would have fought me if I wouldn't have agreed to it. But anyway, so we changed it to AccuPix mailers. That's what we call it now. But anyway, I'm the guy that came up with that. Now, since then, other industries have copied it. Insurance, you see it in all different industries. And I couldn't patent it because Google made it available to anybody because they want to make money. So they sell those images, so that's why they do it. So I couldn't patent it. But anyway, so that was the first one. That was very successful. Doesn't work so well anymore, but it did in the beginning. I'm always innovating. That's correct, because no matter what you're doing in mail, it runs its course. It has a life cycle. It doesn't work forever. Yellow letters was the hot thing in real estate 15 years ago. Handwritten yellow letters. You almost never see a handwritten yellow letter anymore because that kind of ran its course too. Although I will say I'm in the process now of designing a whole new yellow letter campaign to try to bring that back around, because since we haven't seen it in a while, I think it's going to work again.
It's like an old outfit. You just got to bring it back. Like bell bottoms came back for a little bit. You just got to go back, see what hit, and then do a little burst and see what comes back.
But the checks, what's very popular in the industry right now is offer checks, fake checks. I invented that too. Now, I didn't invent the concept of fake checks, but I brought it to the real estate industry because nobody did that. I came up with that 10 years ago before I was even really doing this too seriously. But we had it on our website, and I had like 2 customers who would use it, and they killed it all the time. But everybody else was afraid of it because they're afraid of the offer. They were afraid, if I give you a number, I'm stuck with that number, and how do I come up with that number? But in COVID, the government was sending out checks like crazy. And we had a couple of customers see that on our website, and they thought, people are getting checks. I bet this would be a good time to send a check, 'cause they might open my mail and pay attention to it, because they might think it's a COVID check. They were right, okay? And all of a sudden it exploded. And so we then expanded that line. I came up with the pressure seal version of that, which is, what a pressure seal form is? It's like an envelope where you see it all the time, government checks and things. They're official documents where the edges are sealed and you got to tear it off to open it up. That's called pressure seal. So I came up with the idea of using pressure seal to do mail, and that worked very well too. That still works very well. We have a whole library of different pressure seal forms, including checks. So I'm just always, I don't know, I get a lot of mail. I look at the mail in other industries and I try to repurpose other ideas I see, or we come up with original ideas, and they don't always work. When we come up with something new, we test it with our own money first, and then if we have reasonable success, we'll open up a beta test to a few select customers that are willing to test, and we give them basically a at cost price, which is basically barely over postage. And then we run a test for usually at least have 50,000 pieces out there before I draw any conclusions. And then if it works, then we'll add it to our library. And we recently started copywriting. I say recently, a couple of years ago, because everybody was stealing our ideas, and that hurts when you do all the work and put the time in and the money, and then somebody else takes it, especially when they undercut you. And we had one particular competitor, I won't mention their name, that was notorious for doing that, and I happen to be in a lawsuit with them right now because I finally got fed up with it and I sued them over it. So that's in court right now. But we copyright because that protects our customers too, because what I said earlier, mail pieces run their course. Well, if we come up with something that's working and our customers are using it, and then everybody and their brother copies it, well, that's hurting they're getting hurt too. It's going to mean it's going to not work quicker,
Yeah. When you think of a business like you have with 100 plus employees, you've been doing this a long time, have a lot of industry experience. Do you carve out time and or money for innovation? Do you have somebody that is on staff that does that, or is that kind of a pet project of yours where you like?
That's mine.
I figured the way you were talking about it.
Yeah, that's the engineer in me. Now, I'm not going to say we have people. Everybody comes up with ideas. I tell people, you get anything in the mail that looks kind of interesting, bring it to me. Or if you see anything anywhere your customers bring to you, bring it to me. And a lot of those, they're kind of other people's ideas, but I usually take it and develop it into something, because I got to make sure, because I don't want to, because we protect our copyright, I want to make sure we're not copying anybody else's stuff, because I think it's immoral to do it anyway, unethical, so I will not do that. So I want to make sure whatever we're doing, we're not copying something somebody else did. So if I'll take another mail piece from another industry, I'll use the idea and rework it for our industry, but it's different enough that nobody could ever say I copied them.
I have a kind of a random question for you, but I know you'll likely have an opinion on this. If you had, say, and I'm going to use $10,000 just as an example. So let's say you had a $10,000 budget. Do you think it would be better to mail 10,000 mail piece budget? We'll just leave the dollars out of it.
Right.
Is it better to mail 10,000 pieces to 10,000 different people, 5,000 twice, or 2,500 four times? Is there a magic formula for what would work best?
Well, no, the answer is no, but I have an opinion, okay? And the answer depends on your budget and where you live. Because if you're in LA or Chicago or New York or any huge city that has millions and millions of people, your potential prospects are also probably in the millions, or at least hundreds of thousands. So if you're a guy in a giant area and you only got a $5,000 a month budget, I would, in that case, employ us to pick the best possible list and mail a unique list every time you mail. But there's an old axiom in mail that it takes 7 to 13, not just mail, all marketing. It takes 7 to 13 touches to get someone to finally respond. And I generally agree with that, but it doesn't mean you won't get someone to respond the first time they see something. So if you have a low budget and a huge possible pool, we can really dial in with AI, especially these days. We're using several different AI tools to really dial in a list. I would dial in that list as tight as you possibly can and then mail to 5,000 unique people or 10,000 unique people. But if you're someone that's mailing 100,000 a month, even if you're in a big area, you can't help it but mail the same people over and over again because there's only so many prospects, because everybody has what I call an avatar, what their ideal prospect is. And by the way, I didn't ask earlier when I was talking about our process. That's also part of the process, is we want to know what your avatar is. What are you looking for? You want houses in $50,000 to $100,000 range with 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Somebody's owned it for 30 years, whatever that is. Everybody's got criteria that's ideal for them. We can feed all that criteria into our database and help that to come up with a list that's really targeted. The more you mail and the bigger your budget is, the more you're gonna repeat no matter what. And I absolutely do think it is effective to mail the same person over and over again. But how often, how frequent? There's different opinions on that. Honestly, I don't have any hard and fast yes or no, because there's so many variables. It's really hard to nail that down.
When you have customers in your real estate investing world, how do you get the data on what is working currently? Are you constantly do you do a survey with them, or kind of a call or a meeting to collect basically, we're getting 1% open rate or 1% response rate here, we're getting this over there. Where do you get your data? Is that an industry thing?
Well, the data, all right, so there's 153 million households in the United States, okay? All that data comes from property tax offices all over the United States. Everybody has the same data. So there's no magic data, okay? But that's just the raw households. Those addresses never change, an address, an address, an address. You can go anywhere and get the names and addresses of people that live somewhere. But there's all kinds of demographics that go along with that. How old the house is, bedrooms, baths, equity, you name it. There's like 200 different things that are included in property tax records that you can use any one of those to help filter down. And on top of that, all property tax record offices are different. They report different things. Some people record bedrooms and baths, some don't. Some people record certain types of deeds, some don't. So because we do so much mail and we pull so many lists, we've gotten really good at knowing the different property tax offices and what they do report, what they don't report. And then we've also gotten really good at knowing in what areas what filters tend to do better than others. And so we use it's knowledge we've gained from just all the mail we've done to help advise people. Now, how do we get that data? Okay, so there's two answers to what you said. Number one, it's raw response rate, okay? That's easy. All we got to do is put a tracking phone number on any mail piece, and we get the numbers, how many people responded, and we know how many calls were answered. Through that, we can tell if they picked up the phone or not, and how many calls came in. That happens, the computer does that automatically, and I can get a report. So we do that on probably half our mail. We have tracking phone numbers. Whether it's a good deal or not, whether you close the deal, that's a little harder. That does require our customers to tell us if they close the deal. And we try to have that dialogue, because when we do reviews on a regular basis, like I said, once a quarter we try to revise the campaign. And part of that interview with the customer is, hey, how'd it go? How many deals did you get? And some are more open than others about what they get. I try to ask them how many they get and how much money they make. Those are the two things I want to know, because that helps me evaluate if they're getting a good ROI. We want to help get people as high as ROI as possible. And the more feedback they give us, the more we can help that. So it's not easy. We're working on a new system that I've been spending literally millions of dollars developing. And when that comes out, we're going to have even better tracking data. But the ultimate closed data still relies on the customers to input that into whatever system it is. We're going to have a way for them to do that. And I think we'll have better data that way. But we have pretty good. We have a pretty good idea. But really, raw response rate, most of the leads, we know enough that the leads we generate from direct mail are generally good leads. You're always going to have people say, take me off the list. You're always going to get crazy phone calls, no matter what you do. Ignore that, okay? Once you get down to the people that are what I call qualified leads, that are serious, they have a house, they really do want to talk to somebody, they're always good. So it comes down to how good the customer is at actually closing the deal. And we have no control over that.
Okay, gun to your head. You can only pick one or two different lists to mail to. What would they be as things sit right now? Well,
everybody and their brother does the obvious, which is high equity, absentee, out-of-state owners. Okay, that's people that own rental properties, basically. And anybody that's ever owned rental properties will get to a point, I've done this multiple times in my life, where you're fed up with the rental property and you decide you want to get rid of it. Okay, so that's absolutely the best list. But the problem with that is every single real estate investor in America goes after that same group of people. So your competition there is very high. That's another thing I didn't mention, but it's huge in marketing. Competition is the single biggest factor in success, more than any marketing strategy, okay? Because there's only so many deals to be had in any given market. And when times get tougher, like right now, there's fewer deals to be had. So how many people are trying to get those same deals? That's the hard part. And how good are you at getting yourself to stand out amongst the other 10 people that are trying to get the same deal, 10 or 20 or 100? Okay. Now, what we do with mail helps. Because if we have a good mail piece that stands out in the mail, they might call you or my customer quicker than they call the other 10 people that are marketing. That helps. But also, do you answer the phone? What happens when you do answer the phone? Are you good at follow-up? Not too many deals get closed on the first phone call. So how good are you at doing what you're supposed to do and getting back to the people with what you're supposed to do? Back to that, I do what I say I'm going to do 100% of the time. Do you as the customer do that? You're good at it? That has a massive impact on your success. But what list is best? So that's the obvious one. With AI is a moving target. AI can really dial things in using the magic of AI. And frankly, I don't even know what that is. It can go out there and gather all this demographic data, and it can digest all that and to say this group of leads is more likely to sell than this other group. We have 2 different AI algorithms we've developed, and they work differently. They both produce a good result. But we have a couple lists called the invisible list and the shipwreck list. Another one is probate. Shipwreck list basically is made up of probate, people that have died. Inheritance, that's also people that have died. They're just not in probate court. People that have been divorced, people that got financial problems, foreclosures or pre-foreclosures. Anybody that's about to, all those people are highly motivated to sell a house. So those are hot lists too. But like probate takes a long time. You got to know how to handle that. That's not a quick sale because you got to wait for the courts. Inheritance is usually not a quick sale either because families have got to agree, and that's not always easy to do. But so there's all different ways. There's not any one thing. In the overall scheme, again, back to what I said earlier, the lower your budget and the bigger your market, the more we can dial in to people that are really motivated. The higher your budget and the more you want to mail, the more it just becomes a numbers game.
Yeah, got it. Now, one thing I did want to point out is you mentioned earlier in the podcast that there's mail houses and a lot of real estate investors, typically will try that to save costs. You can go to a mail house, they'll take your stuff, they'll print it, maybe stamp it, mail it, and not much else. So You're providing, I've done this. I've never worked with how you're describing your business and the amount of knowledge that you're carrying around. It seems almost like you're more of a concierge style business as opposed to just a product based, it's a widget.
For sure, 100%.
Because just being able to ask you these questions and find out what's current, I may think I have a kick-ass letter or postcard design, and you can look at it and say, we can do this, but you are going to lose money. You're not going to get any people responding. So,
by the way, I had that conversation a lot.
I bet.
Because people tend to think, especially in marketing, they think if they get some flashy, the more colorful, the more flashy, the better the graphics look, the better it's going to do. In real estate, generally speaking, the better the graphics, the worse it does.
Is that right?
Believe it or not, the crappier it looks, the better it performs in many cases. So, yeah, you're right. But we are concierge. I'm old school. I'm 63 years old. I still believe no matter where technology goes, and believe me, we have plenty of technology. We're using AI. We have a website. You can order on the website. I'm paying millions of dollars to upgrade my website and make the latest, greatest thing ever. But we're still human beings. And this is, as I said early in this show, direct mail is complicated. Marketing is complicated. To be successful, there's a whole lot of variables you got to consider that most people never think about. So we call our salespeople coaches. That's not just a word. We really do coach people. We coach people on marketing, okay? We draw the line there. I'm not going to coach you on how to run your business or how to close your deals. That's other guys have coaching businesses do that. That's not our niche.
Yep.
But when it comes to marketing, how to get the phone to ring, we're really good at that. And yeah, we do coach people. And we charge more for it. I mean, we are concierge, that's right. We charge more than most of our competitors. But I guarantee you our customers get a better ROI and they end up with more money in their pocket, even though they may spend a little more with me because we get them better results.
Jeff, you mentioned that you have your own real estate portfolio. Like how are you getting your own leads, and what are you?
Well, anymore I don't. I sold it all.
Okay.
So I'm out of the real estate business, except for one vacation property. That's my own vacation property. But I had 16 properties a year ago. So, and I've never had a huge portfolio, but 16 is the most I've ever had. But it was mail. It was mail. I made deals with, like the 16 came from, I've got a guy that works for me that almost all of our coaches are investors to some degree, even if they only have one rental property, because I want my guys to have experience actually owning real estate.
Yeah, it's important.
They can coach better when they know the game. And so I made a deal with him and said, I'll provide the marketing and the money, you do all the work, and we'll split the profits. So I made that deal several times over the years with various different people. But I also did it myself. I mean, I learned the hard way. But I've always used mail mainly to get the leads.
Jeff was like, "Hey, I want to test market this new philosophy here." And oh wait, we got 16 houses. Let's just go with it.
The unintended consequences of beta testing your own product resulted in 16.
Well, you know how we did that? That's the truth too. What happened is we did a mail campaign, did 10,000 pieces of mail in St. Louis area, and we just wanted to buy a few properties. We wanted to do a Section 8 thing. We had a couple customers do really well Section 8, and we have a lot of areas in St. Louis that they're really good for Section 8. So we wanted to try that because the government guarantees the money, but it's lower income areas, so they're harder properties to manage. Anyway, long story short, we came up in doing that mailing, we bought a couple and we found two wholesalers that had a huge portfolio, and we ended up, instead of getting 2 or 3, we got 16 from one mail campaign.
Oh my God.
Lessons right there.
Holy crap. That's crazy. That's a pretty stout response rate and close rate. I love it. Well, man, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I literally have pages more notes here, but in the interest of time here, we do have a section that Ted and I like to cover every time. We call it
Failing Forward,
where we talk about something in life or business that didn't go according to plan, what you learned from it, and wouldn't take back the lesson. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I got several of those stories, frankly. Probably the biggest one that sticks in my mind. I had a battle with the IRS back about 15 years ago, and I mean a battle. I went to court with the IRS because I took some aggressive deductions that they didn't agree with, and I'd gotten advice from attorneys and accountants that those were valid, and frankly, I thought I was right. So I did not agree to pay what they wanted me to pay. So I fought them. It was very painful, very expensive. In the end, I won. So the good news is I won, but it just wasn't worth it. In the end, as I look back on it, what I saved, I ended up spending in legal fees anyway, so I wasn't really any better off. And it was just a lot of pain, and I wouldn't do it again. So anymore, I'll do a little bit of gray area, but it's very, very, it's on the safe side of the gray area. I never go over it. It just isn't worth the grief. So I follow the rules, pay my taxes, file the right forms, and I sleep well at night. I don't worry about it. And I've been audited twice since then. And
yeah, you're on the list now.
They didn't find a single dollar.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
And they walked away saying, wow, that never happens. Because we're just not doing it. It isn't worth it. So anyway, that's my lesson. That's the most painful one. Now, I have several of the companies I bought didn't work out that great, but I didn't ever lose my ass on anything. It just wasn't ideal.
But there was a pride thing to winning that, right? You're like,
I was just going to say that too.
Yeah. It does. I can say I beat the IRS.
Yeah.
It was kind of on a technicality, but I don't care. I won.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Well, man, again, I could talk to you for hours about this. I got pages of questions, but we do have our last section that we call the OT with Owen and Ted. And in here, we like to ask you some additional questions and see what you say.
I'm going to take that first one.
You take the first one.
Yeah. So a lot of us have a superpower in our world, something that sometimes it takes longer to discover what that is. But what would you say is your superpower that separates you from everybody else?
I see opportunity when other people don't see it.
I agree with that.
Pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, like 27.
That's the entrepreneur in me that, I don't know, I can't help it. Everywhere I go, I'm always thinking business. I don't care where I go, I'm trying to evaluate. I'm eating in a restaurant and I'm thinking, what if this guy's making any money? And I just can't help it. So, now that's got me, the last question, I've started a bunch of companies that didn't work out. So they don't always work out, but I'm not afraid. I never risk the farm. The big learning lesson, I never risk the farm in any one thing I'm trying. I never take, it's just a small risk, not a huge risk. Because I always go into thinking, if this goes totally bad, am I still okay? And if I can't say yes to that, I don't do it. But yeah, that's really it. I don't care if it's marketing or whatever it is. I'm really good at seeing like what's not obvious.
Yeah, I kind of like that rule that you threw out earlier about, hey, if I can't look at that and pay that off or break even within 1 year, then it's not for me. That's a good way to look at things.
Right.
Do you have anything when you look back on your life and business or your personal life hobbies that you were like, man, if I could go back, I would have liked to have tried X? Is there a career path, a business opportunity, or maybe a hobby that you had always wanted to take up, but life got in the way?
Hobby, I play guitar, and I do play guitar actively now, but I never really took it serious when I was a kid. I always wanted to be in a band. And
never too late, Jeff.
I just never took it seriously enough to get really good at it. So I was never in a band, and I regret that because I occasionally play in my church band now, and my son just got married in the Bahamas last week, and I was on stage and I wrote a song and sang the song at the wedding. Oh, cool. That's been kind of a hobby. I've written a song for all my kids' weddings, my own wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
But I'm just a strummer. I'm kind of a hacker on the guitar. So I just wish I would have learned how to play lead guitar and get really good at it.
Me too. I can't do it. But, as the immortal Nickelback says, we all just want to be big rock stars, right?
Yeah.
All right, Ted, what do you got?
I just laugh because I have some stories about hanging out with him.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you met the lead singer. Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned the kids. Like, how many kids do you have?
Three.
And
the youngest one just got married. He's 29. And then I have a 35-year-old girl and a 42-year-old boy. 42-year-old boy works for me also as one of my better sales guys.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I noticed you didn't say best, but maybe that's your brother.
Well, my brother is the number one guy,
Nice.
so he's been with me the longest, and nobody's going to catch him because he really sells a lot. So
that's cool. All in the family.
Do you anticipate that your son's going to take over the legacy?
No, actually. He's a good salesman. What I won't do, and this is a mistake a lot of businesses make. In fact, statistically, 75% of second-generation businesses go out of business because most people just give it to their family no matter what. I won't do that. If he does not have he or anybody else in my family, my brother also, if they don't have the skill to properly do the job of running a company this size, I will not just hand it to them because I owe it to my 100 people to keep the entity strong, and I won't do that just because it's my family. So they'll be taken care of, make no mistake. But it's not just automatic.
Yeah, love that. Well, what's on the docket for you here in the near term? Are you looking to acquire more commercial print shops? You got any new business lines that you're starting? Any new products or
Well, the PPL is the new thing. That is paper lead, and it's going really well. We're off to a lightning start in 4 months, so I'm really excited about that. It really opens up more customers, like I said earlier, and it opens us up to the new guys more. We can help them get started, and then they can maybe do direct mail later. So I don't really care what I sell somebody as long as I sell them something. But we want it to be good, and it's not so far. We're getting great reviews about their leads. People are closing deals. It's working out really well.
Awesome.
It's supplementing our direct mail really well. We may at some future date, although I'm sort of against this, but we may someday get into actually doing PPC marketing, or if somebody hires us as the PPC person.
Oof.
But
yeah,
I'm really,
bag of cat.
I don't know. Maybe. I got a couple people pushing for that in my company, and the only way I would do it is if we're so successful in PPL, because we are using PPC as an element of the PPL. That'd be so successful, I felt like I could then share that as another avenue. But it's a whole different animal. I've been the customer of marketing agency. You essentially become a marketing agency when you do that. Mm-hmm. And I've been a marketing agency customer many times, and it's never worked out. We've fired every one of them. It's just really it's hard to be successful as a marketing agency working for somebody else. So I don't want to be the guy people are firing. Yeah. That's not. PPL is different because we generate a lead. You just buy one lead. You don't care how I got the lead as long as it's a good lead. That's different than saying I'm going to pay you thousands of dollars every month to be my agency and get me results. Anyway, but no, that's it. I don't want to go too crazy. I'm sad. If my company never grew from where it is now, I'd be totally satisfied. But I think we can grow. I think we can get to $50 million in sales in the next 2 to 5 years. Beyond that, I don't know. I think that may be our limit. Who knows?
keep doing these podcasts and keep releasing books. That's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, we are. You know, I just don't know how big the real estate market is. That's nobody really knows. So I have no idea what percentage we have of it because those statistics aren't reported anywhere. So it's kind of guesswork. But we still find people every day. People like you guys, people like coaches. Like one of the things we're doing is going to REIAs. That's how we met you guys. Mm-hmm. Instead of going to these giant events, we are going to local REIAs all over the country. Good sized ones. We want REIAs that got like 100 people or more, but that's not hard to find that in most cities in the United States.
Yeah.
That we're relatively new into that, but that's been working out really good.
Jeff, if somebody wants to learn more about you, I know that you have a few books out there. Can you shout out those books that you have and what they cover?
Well, the main book is that relates to direct mail. It's called Killing It with Direct Mail, and we'll give you one. Just contact us, and I'll get you the contact information to put in this podcast. But just call us, and we'll give you a free sample kit, including a book to take a look at. It's a book about direct mail. I also have a book I've written that has nothing to do with business. It's called The Case for God's Law. It's a book about God. Which is a passion I have as well. So I don't sell that one either. I give that away as well. So if somebody ever had an interest in that, I'd be happy to give you a copy too.
If I wanted to buy some of those copies before you come to Omaha, can I get on Amazon and buy those?
Just tell me what you want. I'll bring them. Okay. You don't have to buy them.
Perfect. Concierge. Concierge service.
Well, Jeff, if our listeners want to learn more about you, what's the best way to reach you, and what are you looking for right now?
The best way to reach us is we'll give you a link. Call. I'm not on the front lines dealing with customers. I have 12 full-time direct marketing coaches that will help you to get your mail campaign off the ground. That's who you'll talk to. And we have what I call a round robin. I'll get you that information. Basically what we do is we offer a free coaching call, free 15-minute call with anybody to just talk about your market. We'll analyze your market for you, tell you what we think the opportunity is. And we're not high pressure at all. I believe in the long-term relationship, not the hard close. So I found if I hard close somebody, those relationships never last anyway.
Yep. Yeah.
So
transactional.
You know, it'll be an information call. Nobody's going to bug you. And then that's really it. What are we looking for? We're just looking for people that are interested in trying to build their business through direct mail marketing or now paper lead marketing.
Yeah, love that. Jeff, first off, if you guys listen to this, you loved what you're hearing, Jeff is going to be here in Omaha, Nebraska. He's going to be speaking on June 2nd in front of our local REIA group. Super excited about that. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for flying in. And we'll also have that on our Kash Dash YouTube channel. We'll have that live stream if you are a national listener. So June 2nd, tune in. Jeff's going to be on at 7 p.m. Central Time. And with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of Aiden Bear and Ted Kaasch, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Jeff, Selling Yourself by Being Honest, Charlton. You've been listening to the Kash Dash Show. Signing off.